quiet office in London. No soldiers, no flags, just ink, paper, and men in suits counting numbers. Then the camera pulls back, and the paperwork becomes a map. Not a map of one country, a map of a continent. And that's the first twist. This story isn't about a nation conquering another nation. It's about a company doing it. The East India Company starts as traders, merchants chasing spices, silk, and profit. But somewhere along the way, they learn a dangerous lesson. Trade is hard. Taxes are easy. Tariffs depend on customers. Taxes don't. Taxes are guaranteed. So the company changes its business model. It stops asking people to buy and starts forcing people to pay. Now we land in 1799. This is the turning point. Enter Richard Wellesley, the Governor General, ambitious, impatient, obsessed with borders like their trophies. He isn't thinking like an accountant anymore. He's thinking like a chess player. And his most effective move isn't a battle. It's a contract. He rolls out something called the Subsidiary Alliance. On the surface, it sounds generous. We'll protect your kingdom. But it comes with strings. Thick strings. Like chains. The king must accept company troops inside his borders. And here's the trick. He must pay for that army. So imagine the scene. A royal court, a ruler signing a deal, and outside, company soldiers already waiting. The king is paying for the very force that will one day corner him. Miss the payments? No problem, because the company has already written the penalty into the fine print. Your land becomes collateral. Your kingdom becomes a debt. Then we cut to Mysore and to Tipu Sultan, the tiger of Mysore. He's not naive. He sees exactly what's happening. He modernizes his army, experiments with rocket technology, searches for alliances, even reaches toward Napoleon. He knows this isn't trade anymore. It's takeover. And in May 1799, at Seringapatam, the air turns black with smoke. Walls shake. Footsteps run. Chaos tightens like a fist. Tipu fights and dies fighting. And the company learns something else. The blueprint works. Remove the strong, install the weak. After that, conquest becomes routine. It doesn't always look like war. Sometimes it looks like investigation. Sometimes it looks like treaty. Sometimes it looks like a signature that quietly erases a kingdom. We move into the timeline, 1801 to 1849, and it feels like watching floodwater rise. In 1801, the Carnatic is annexed, justified with the usual accusation: betrayal, secret messages, disloyalty. The method is consistent: paperwork first, gunfire second. Then comes the Maratha Confederacy, the last major wall standing in central India. At a say, artillery thunders, bodies fall, and the company wins despite being outnumbered. The political aftermath is just as brutal as the battlefield. Exile, confiscation, leadership removed from its roots and shipped away like cargo. By 1843, even London gets uneasy. The conquest of Sindh is so blatant, it becomes a scandal. The legend goes, a general sends back a one-word telegram, Pekavi, I have sinned, a pun that also means I have sinned. Dark humor for a dark grab. Even people in Britain flinch because this time the theft isn't wearing gloves. Then Punjab. After Ranjit Singh dies, the Sikh Empire cracks under the pressure of succession fights and political chaos. The company moves in. 2 wars later, Punjab is taken. And then comes one of the most symbolic moments in the entire story, the Koh-i-Noor diamond, taken from a child ruler. The camera should linger here, on a small hand, releasing a jewel too heavy with history to be just a gemstone. Now step forward, Lord Dalhousie, the architect of conquest without battles. He doesn't want slow wars. He wants fast annexations. So he perfects a weapon made of ink, the Doctrine of Lapse. The idea is simple and cruel. If a ruler dies without a natural-born male heir, The kingdom lapses to the company. In Indian tradition, adopted heirs are legitimate. Dalhousie ignores that, because adoption doesn't help shareholders. So one by one, kingdoms vanish from the map like someone erasing pencil marks. Satara, gone. Nagpur, gone. Jhansi, taken, planting the seed for the fierce resistance of Rani Lakshmibai. And in 1856 comes Awadh, the final insult. There's no inheritance issue here, no lapse. The king has heirs, so Dalhousie uses a different excuse, mismanagement. That's all he needs. The company marches into Lucknow, boots on marble, and a court that once sang with poetry is forced into silence. But while maps are changing colors, something else is happening out in the fields, among ordinary people. This is the human ledger. The company's machine runs on maximum extraction. In Bengal and Bihar, farmers are pushed into an opium monopoly. Poppy fields aren't a choice, they're a requirement. Refuse, and your crops can be destroyed, fall behind, and debt piles up like a wall around your life. By 1839, opium is moving east in staggering amounts, feeding a destabilizing trade with China. On paper, it's commerce. On the ground, it's coercion. And when drought comes, the cost becomes unbearable. Traditional grain storage systems are dismantled. Safety nets disappear. So when famine hits, people don't just suffer, they collapse. The 1770 famine leaves millions dead, yet tax collection continues anyway, because the ledger doesn't care what the village looks like. This is the image, empty bowls beside full account books. Meanwhile, the company's army grows massive, about 260,000 men by the mid-1800s, and most of them are Indian. That's the cruel contradiction. The conquered are being used to enforce their own conquest. Layer on top of this the daily humiliations, cultural disrespect, religious insensitivity, and the constant reminder that dignity can be rewritten by someone else's policy. Then comes a spark, the greased cartridges, a small detail that lands like an explosion, but it's not the real cause. It's just the match. The fuel has been building for decades. Stolen kingdoms, broken promises, legal traps, and the steady grind of extraction. In 1857, the uprising erupts. The map becomes chaos, garrisons, roads, rumors, whole regions igniting. It spreads fast because the anger has been waiting everywhere. The British response is ruthless, systematic, vengeful. Punishments are staged as terror. Men are tied to cannons and executed in public, violence turned into warning. The rebellion lasts about 18 months, an exhausting, grinding conflict that scars both sides. And here's the irony. The company survives the war, but it doesn't survive the consequences. Because Britain finally realizes the nightmare it created, a private corporation nearly lost the jewel in the crown. So in 1858, Parliament steps in with the Government of India Act. Think of it as a corporate death certificate. The company is stripped of power. Rule transfers to the crown. The British Raj begins. A business empire becomes a political empire. And when you zoom out, the scale is almost unbelievable. A firm that began in a small London office ended up shaping the lives of hundreds of millions. Yes, there are railways. Yes, there's bureaucracy, but those tools are double-edged, building infrastructure while tightening control, modern systems built on extraction. Then comes the economic cliff. Estimates suggest India's share of global GDP falls dramatically over the long arc, from around 24% in 1700 to under 4% by the time the company era ends. The exact numbers are debated, but the direction is hard to deny. Wealth drained, crafts hollowed out, markets forced to bend. And that leaves us with the modern question. What happens when profit becomes policy? Because this story isn't just about the past, it's a pattern. Alliances that trap, debt that steals, laws that legalize plunder. Power doesn't always arrive with cannons. Sometimes it arrives with the right paperwork, signed at the right table, in a quiet office far away. So as the map turns pink, and then fades to grayscale, let the last image be a ledger, pages fluttering like flags. Because the final lesson is brutal and simple. When a business becomes a government, customers become subjects. Subscribe for more micro-history told through maps, motives, and documents, and tell me in the comments which tactic shocked you most, the alliance, the doctrine, or the opium machine.